right, I think we'll go ahead and get things rolling here. Just to introduce myself, my name is Blake Rain. I'm content team lead here at Spinutech. For any first-time attendees joining us today, let me tell you just a little bit about Spinutech and who we are. So we're a full-service digital agency that specializes in building full funnel strategies that drive traffic and convert leads. We've got offices in Cedar Falls and Des Moines, Iowa, and Tampa, Florida, as well as remote team members in more than 30 states. In total, I think we're clocking in at about 170 team members these days. So today, our presenters are going to tackle a topic that should be very familiar to everyone on this call, AI, specifically how AI-powered tools can enhance your SEO strategy. So let me go ahead and introduce our experts. Today, you'll be hearing from Ben Johnson, a senior SEO strategist on our team, Joe Unhammer, one of our SEO strategists, and Sarah Butler, an SEO copywriter. Just one final note before we get started, just feel free to submit any questions throughout the presentation. You'll notice the chat feature's been disabled for today's event, but we'll be monitoring the Q&A feature and plan to hopefully leave time to answer your questions at the end of the presentation. But I know we got a lot to cover, so it's enough for me. I'll hand off to Ben here to get us started.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Blake. This is our agenda for today. We'll be covering 4 core sections, really starting off with just an overview about SEO and the age of AI, quickly jumping into the real meat of the presentation with discussing research, content generation, and different ways that these tools can assist with technical SEO. But without delay, we really want to jump into the meat of this, which is obviously SEO in the age of AI. These AI tools really have been the talk of the town in a sense since they've come out earlier this year, particularly ChatGPT, Bard, and the Bing AI system that was recently released by Microsoft. And so these tools really have caused quite the disruption. There's a lot of really fantastic and cool things that you can do with these tools. You know, the creativity that I think a lot of digital marketers have come up with and the different ways that they utilize them has been fantastic. But with that double-edged sword is always the fear that these tools could replace a digital strategist or an SEO strategist. And one thing that we're really hoping to kind of dispel today with our presentation is to show you that not only should you not fear these tools, but we actually should be really leaning into using these tools on a day-to-day basis, as they can be very effective at completing small tasks. But truly, they lack that core intelligence to create an entire effective strategy. They're very good at creating efficiency and leveling up your quality of your work. So jumping into where we will talk about today and what our AI-powered tools will discuss is in each section, we'll be discussing a few different tools, but more or less a consistent one, which is ChatGPT and Cloud 2. In the research section, we'll be primarily focusing on ways to improve your research, keyword research specifically utilizing ChatGPT, Cloud 2, which is a different AI tool developed similar to ChatGPT, and then an offshoot of ChatGPT, which is the web ChatGPT function. In our content generation, Sarah will be taking you through the do's and don'ts of utilizing ChatGPT for generating content. And then last, Joe will be handling the technical SEO part, which we'll be discussing ways to use Cloud 2 and ChatGPT to, again, find those ways to assist and level up your technical SEO abilities. And so to get this going, I will throw it over to Joe to start us with research.
Yep, so for this portion, we're going to talk about the initial research of a specific topic and show how AI can help with that. So one area where AI can be a very powerful tool is research process for your SEO strategist. It can really speed things up, and you can get information at your fingertips within seconds. AI has a vast knowledge bank, and you can use its natural language capabilities to improve the efficiency of your keyword research. We're going to look at some ways where you can use AI to start off the research process and also show you some of the limitations behind it. At the end of the day, you're going to need other tools that you can use to corroborate the information the AI gives you. You're going to need to research whether or not the information you're given is accurate. And keep in mind that there are already tools out there that do help with keyword research. AI is just another tool in your toolkit, and it's best used together with other tools and wielded by an experienced strategist. So here's an example of an initial prompt that we gave AI about storage space in the southeastern United States. We got an immediate response with some keyword ideas for storage space in the southeastern United States. It brought up things like locations, climate control, both keywords that are clearly relevant to the region that they're in. These are keyword modifiers that we find valuable when you consider the intent of the person searching and what they're looking for in a storage unit. This information came out very quickly and gives you a good launch pad to continue your keyword research in Google search engine results page and along with other SEO tools. Once you have your initial keyword research, you can start getting a little bit more granular in your research and ask about specific cities. From here, you start digging into some specifics about the local storage space keyword suggestions. In this case, we see that AI knows that people in Miami are searching for beach and boat storage and suggests that as keyword modifiers. You would take these keywords as an initial jumping off point and then need to research them further, run through a different SEO tool, and get things like search volume and other search suggestions. But it's a great way to start the process. It's efficient and it helps us focus more on the quality of the keywords because we save time on the initial research and can focus more on optimizing for the best possible keyword to satisfy that user intent. And then from here, you can do things like ask AI to write an outline based on either keyword research you've already gotten or just an idea you have. So for example, here we asked for a storage space facility in Atlanta. It gives you what it thinks would be a good breakdown of what a blog post or a page about storage space in Atlanta should look like, where it talks about things like security and access control. It gives you headings that are inviting and concerns that someone searching for storage space and storage units might have. This outline is far from complete, but it also comes from a very short prompt. So the more detail you include in your prompts, the more you're going to get back and the better outline you're going to get. I believe an experienced strategist would look at this and look at the keyword research and the search volume and ask questions. Does this line up with user intent? Here we can clearly see some drawbacks. This outline is pretty generic. For the research portion, the conclusion is it gives you a good idea of the initial keywords, but falls a little short when it comes to producing a quality outline that we could work with. I would say we would rewrite this so much that it might even waste time on the outline process. But the initial keyword, it can definitely help speed up the process. Another thing we want to talk about are extensions and plugins. There are many different ways you can enhance the AI tool that you already have in a way that will improve your research. Every single day, we're seeing new tools pop up. We're doing our best to stay on top of the latest developments when it comes to any AI tool. Many people might only know about ChatGPT, but there are ways you can make ChatGPT better for keyword research and the entire research portion of the SEO process. So two tools that, can move to the next one here, two tools that many people might not have heard of is Cloud2 and Web ChatGPT. These are just a couple of AI tools that we found that can help augment ChatGPT and give even more information about the topic. Or if one goes down, you can use the other. Web ChatGPT specifically makes ChatGPT more up-to-date so that it's no longer stuck in 2021, while Cloud2 also has information from as late as early 2023, even though it's not connected, and gets up-to-date information. So we're going to look a little bit at what that looks like in real time. Everyone see that? So we're going to start with our first prompt, which is asking for keywords about storage space in the southeastern United States. And in this case, we're using Cloud2. So you see, it gives it pretty quickly. Within seconds, we have a list with some ideas for keywords about storage space in the southeastern United States, and includes things like, let's see, we have locations, mostly locations. Sometimes you will find things like climate control that could be important, especially considering the region. It gives different answers at different times, so it's not always the same. That is one of the drawbacks as well. We've seen it bring up things like affordability or near me searches before. In this case, it gives a very short list. So you could then just continue the conversation. And the good thing here, as you can see, I'm only asking, can you think of some more? I'm not asking about storage space. It already knows what we're talking about. So it's like having a conversation with a rather intelligent person that has the knowledge of the internet at its fingertips. So here it brings up other things that I think might be important, like pet friendly, more locations like Tampa, cheap, university storage near Tampa. So, considering things like, is this a college town? What are they searching for, things like that in this region? So it definitely has some good ideas of what you can do. we could also get a little bit more granular and bring up some of these cities that it brought up and see if it has an idea specifically for these cities. So here it breaks it down. You can put in 20 different cities here. We just do 3 right now, just to not keep it, keep it clean. But again, here it considers the area that it's in, consider the different regions of the cities. So it gets a little bit more local, and it doesn't give the very basic keywords, but also consider the cities that is in, the reason that it has, certain keywords that match the city above. And it's not just all the most generic, like storage space near me. Sometimes you will see things like hurricane proof or other things like that, depending on the region. It would bring that up for a city like Miami. It wouldn't bring that up for, a city like Denver, for example. Moving over to ChatGPT, one thing it brought up is climate control. So we can ask ChatGPT, how important is climate control in storage units? And in this case, it gives very quickly a few different reasons why it thinks climate control is important. These could be used as headings. And there's some keywords in here that we could use for further research. Now, this is just without any sources, and we would need to definitely fact check this a little bit, but we have the opportunity to put on web access so that it gives us some sources to look at. So how important is climate control storage units? We'll ask it again, but this time with web access on. And in this case, as you can see, now it brings up sources immediately. The answer here is a little bit more direct. It's a little bit less timid than the other one, which said it can be important. Here it says it is crucial for safeguarding various types of belongings, and here's why. And then it gives you links that you can look at to verify that information. These links can be as late as last month. So again, you're no longer sort of stuck in 2021 on this. These can be very recent blog posts. And then you can ask about the region specifically. We just asked about climate control in general. Here we're going to go into the region and ask, well, why is this important in the southeastern United States? And again, it gives you an answer really quickly. It gives you quite a bit of information, but more importantly, it gives you links back to where it's getting this information from, which really help with the research process and making sure that you have authoritative sources for your blog posts. So we're seeing U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Britannica. So these are high authority sites, government sites that Google would recognize as authoritative links that you could use should you find information in there that you could use in your article. So now we have more of a fact-checking and higher authority output than we would without web access. And with that, I think we're ready to hand it over to Sarah to talk about the content portion.
Thank you, Joe. Also, hi. I think we're just waiting on the next slide. There we go. Okay. So when it comes to emerging AI tools and digital marketing, content generation is among the most overhyped and underexplained use cases for AI. From those making claims about ChatGPT to generate ready-to-publish blog content, to those disavowing the tool for content entirely, it can be a little difficult to find not only a middle ground in the AI content debate, but to also find realistic insights into ways we can leverage these tools to our advantage as digital marketers and content writers. So today I'm going to be walking you through an example of how a content strategist can use ChatGPT to expedite the first draft process, specifically for SEO, local SEO tactics, and scaling out large quantities of bite-sized content. My hope is to illuminate the fact that while ChatGPT and AI tools can certainly create efficiencies for content writing, these efficiencies are only possible in the hands of a content strategist who knows what prompts to give, how to pivot when things go wrong, and how to edit for a publish-worthy final result. So we can go ahead and move to the next slide. Okay, so it's important to understand that using AI as a tool in the content generation process isn't about cutting down the time spent on a project overall. Instead, it's about reallocating that time away from first drafts or menial tasks and using it instead to refine, enhance, and produce ultimately better content for your clients than you would have been able to create otherwise. By viewing AI as a type of untrained content intern, you'll then begin to understand the necessity of having a strong SEO content strategist behind the wheel of this tool, as well as the current limitations of what ChatGPT is capable of creating. In the same way that you wouldn't leave your website's final copy in the hands of an untrained student, you should also be mindful of anyone promising to use AI to generate ready-to-go, high-quality deliverables without review. Now that we know some of the basics, let's dig into ChatGPT for local SEO copy on the next slide. When I think of using AI as a first draft generator, I ask myself, where would I like to spend more time on a project, refining or crafting? In a blog piece or a website homepage, for example, crafting and refining go hand in hand. From start to finish, you're strategizing and polishing for optimal results. But if I'm aiming to scale out 100 similar but different paragraphs with local nuances and geo-modified keywords, the strategy is going to be more oriented towards creating a template, producing as much as possible, and then refining that content. So folding ChatGPT into a process like scaling content then becomes a matter of training the AI session to create consistently solid paragraphs that meet my set of intended parameters and shave down the time I would have spent generating them from scratch. More than this, ChatGPT can also insert the local nuances that may take a strategist ample time to collect and research. On this slide, I've included 3 high-level tactics for scaling content with ChatGPT, which we'll explore in more detail in the next example. So for this project, I wanted ChatGPT to help me scale out a single section of a hypothetical location page for a hypothetical storage unit company. The goal for this page would be to target local SEO keywords and create informational, useful content for the local audience. I'm asking for a single paragraph of content regarding a 10 by 10 storage unit, which will live on each city's main location page. If I wanted to use ChatGPT to create an entire location page, I would aim to scale out that page in sections like this, rather than generate variations of the page as a whole. This would eliminate some of the complications that can arise when using AI for long-form content. We're starting with just 12 locations here, but we'll eventually be able to scale it out to however many we need. I found in my experience that it's better to start small and fine-tune the responses rather than have ChatGPT generate a large amount of unusable content. Here you can see that I start simple, relaying the very basics of the request and asking ChatGPT if it understands. Now that I have confirmation that ChatGPT gets the assignment, we can move on to the next set of information. I then supply the set of locations I'd like to create content for. You can see that my aim was for templated content that I could then insert my own nuances into, because I asked ChatGPT to substitute location for the actual city name. However, in my next set of instructions, I also gave ChatGPT the freedom to insert its own reasons why a person would need a 10 by 10 storage unit. We'll see the results in just a moment, but this is a good place to point out that sometimes different instructions for ChatGPT can trump one another. So before we move on to the results, let's do a quick run through of what information I try to give ChatGPT for scaling local content. So first, I start with the number of content pieces required. Then I explain the intent of both the content piece and the page where the piece will live. Next, I expand on the tone, brand, and other client-specific details. If this were a real project, I would likely supply ChatGPT with links to my client's About Us page, their core values page, just to provide a little further insight. After that, I make sure to know who the audience is and what they're looking for on this page. You'll want to include your specific keyword details, as well as what they are, how often you would like them used. You can include a general length requirement, but I have found that ChatGPT often struggles with counting sentences, words for characters, which is part of why it's still not great for meta descriptions. I make sure to include my locations, as well as whether or not ChatGPT can insert its own nuances. And then lastly, I always provide an example of what I'm looking for, emphasizing that this is for inspiration instead of variation. When creating basic variations, ChatGPT can sometimes just swap adjectives and verbs, which may help on a sentence by sentence scaling project, but it does make for pretty silly paragraphs. So after supplying all of these things, I asked ChatGPT one last time if it understood, and it did. So now we can jump to the results. To start, I'm going to take you through 2 location paragraphs I pulled from my results. The first thing I would like to note is that these are, for all intents and purposes, fairly solid copy. If I were handed this from an intern, I would likely be satisfied and dive into the edits without any major overhauls. The second thing I'd like to point out, which is boxed in red here, is that ChatGPT did include local nuances that feel accurate for the city. That said, part of the review process does entail verifying that any supplemental information is correct. Next, I'm going to note that sometimes, because it's robot content, the language can sound slightly less than human. For example, the phrase that I have boxed in blue here, "have got you covered," is a little clunky, which is where a strong copywriter or editor would make a quick, easy adjustment. Lastly, and this will be evident when you can see the full scale of results here in a moment, ChatGPT did lean into a more templated format in the sense that the sentences all follow the same pattern. This is boxed in blue as well, noting that both paragraphs begin with discover and have a similar second sentence. Now that we've reviewed a few key points, we can jump into the live demo. Okay, can everybody see this? We good?
Yep.
Okay, so for the first portion of this live demo, we're going to be looking at the session that I used to create our example, which was made in the free version of ChatGPT. Now that we're in the session, let's go through the larger list of results from the initial task. So we can scroll down. So here you see the Miami and Tampa, Florida paragraphs that we were talking about. But when we're expanded a little bit more here, you can see that templated approach ChatGPT took a little more clearly. For instance, it often defaults to a hyphenated final sentence, like you can see right here. It also starts most second sentences with weather, and then uses a comparison of two customer profiles, which it's doing in pretty much all of them. And then lastly, it does use a similar call to action at the end of all of these paragraphs. So if you're fine with the templated feel, this isn't that big of a deal. But if you are looking for content that has more true variation, you can adjust this by either 1, editing it yourself, 2, providing more example content at the beginning of your prompt, or 3, even asking ChatGPT to revise. So if I were to use this content for an actual project, I would just likely perform a quick run through of line-by-line edits just to check syntax and add more variation instead of having ChatGPT refine the content. This can be a super complicated process, so I would just recommend having a strong copy editor do it. So now I'm going to scroll all the way down to the end of this session, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT to repeat the same task that it just did, only this time I'm going to paste in the top 50 most populous cities in the US just to show you how quickly we can get a first draft. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these over. Okay, so you can see I just asked, hey, can you repeat this task with the following cities? And we're already off and running. So you can see here that ChatGPT is going to be performing the same exact task and using the templated approach again. It's already diving into the weather, the hyphenated final sentence, the either or with customer profiles. And then it's also going to be highlighting, which I didn't mention in the first example, kind of 1 or 2 specific like special features of this company. So while these results will need reviewed and edited by a strategist, you can see how quickly we generated that first draft and how much time was saved once the initial prompting process had been fleshed out. So now let's see what happens when I copy and paste the same exact prompts that worked here into a brand new ChatGPT premium session. I'm going to pause my screen share for just a moment and then go ahead and get that set up. So let me this. Okay, and it's taking just a moment. Okay, let me go back to screen share. All right, are we good? Can we see the ChatGPT 4 screen? Okay, all right. So now I'm going to quickly paste our prompts in. I know we're running a little long. So here's that same first prompt that we walked through in the first example. And it's thinking, which happens sometimes. So now we're going to get that response. You'll know it's probably going to be a little bit different than the initial response. So for instance, it's going to be asking me some questions. I've noticed that ChatGPT, the premium version, it does get a little more in depth with your prompts. So here it's going to ask me these specific questions. For the sake of this experiment, I'm going to just kind of ignore this and continue pasting exactly what we gave the original example. Okay. So I'm going to paste in those initial requests as well as that example. So now, while this generates, I would like to emphasize 2 review tactics that I highly recommend if you're going to be using ChatGPT to scale content. Whenever I've completed my edits and review of AI generated content, I do run it through both a plagiarism checker and an AI detector, because AI can pull information from anywhere online. This step adds an extra level of reassurance that the content you're producing for a client is unique and also reads as human, because for the most part, it is by now. Okay, so it's still going, but you can see how rapidly it's moving. So we're gonna do, I'm just gonna try to scroll up here and do a quick review as a content strategist that I would just a brief run through. So already I'm noticing a better level of paragraph variation, as well as a higher level of task understanding and language. So you can see the difference between, like sun-soaked streets and bustling, and then we're not continuing to just repeat that weather second sentence. We do have some pretty good variation, and then we're also having some decent variation at the end, but there is still that call to action that's pretty emphatic. And then the other thing I would like to note is that it does look like this blended both of those instructions that had been trumped before. So now it's showing that ChatGPT is doing local nuances as well as the templated approach. So you can see it's just a little more sophisticated, and it's able to process multiple instructions as opposed to our other session. So just doing a quick scroll, I would like to note that I do think the results of this session are a little better, but you could definitely refine the prompts and train this session for even higher quality first drafts. So now we can go back to the last slide. Okay, so as I close my presentation, I'd like to encourage you to begin imagining what AI tools can do when wielded by the right strategist. While the technology is new and filled with challenging complexities, it's also incredibly exciting and capable of being leveraged for efficiencies when used by the right experts. So now I will pass it back to Joe to talk about AI and technical SEO.
Thank you, Sarah. So just diving right into it here, we do not believe AI is going to remove the need for support from the development team from your SEO strategy. So we can jump to the next slide. I think it can produce some basic code for your technical enhancements, though, and shouldn't be completely discounted. In one test, Cloud 2 got a 71.2% score in the Codex Human Eval Python coding test, which was more than I think they expected. It does make mistakes, though, and unless you have the previous experience, you would not be able to spot those mistakes. What it can do is aid your SEO strategy, speed up the process of writing code for both the SEO strategist and the developer, and allow us to focus more on the quality of output once certain menial tasks have been completed. One example where AI can help an SEO strategist is in generating schema data or structured data markup. There are many tools out there that already does this, but I find that various AI tools do it quicker and more efficiently than the existing tools that we were using before this AI revolution came upon us. So they also provide a lot of fields for higher quality output. It's not revolutionary, but it's a good tool. It's very fast. And so we can go over some examples of what it can do just as far as writing code. Everyone see that?
Yep.
So with a very, very basic prompt, just asking it to write some schema data for a store space in Atlanta, it very quickly gives you a lot of information. Still going. So efficiently, very fast. You're still going to have to fill in all these fields, but also if you had that beforehand, you could put that in the prompt. So we're just going with the generic example. If we had all this already, we put that in a prompt, it would populate it within seconds, copy paste this into the right field, and then you have some pretty good schema data. So that's one example where an SEO strategist could use this. And it could definitely help speed up the process. Now it can do fancier things as well, but this is where you kind of can get in trouble and start wasting a little bit of time. So it'll write like a Python script, like I said, but it does make mistakes. Unless you are a developer, unless you already write Python, you will not be able to spot those mistakes. And so this is where it could potentially put you back a little bit, but it could also give you a good base for, a script that would help you do certain things, like check for broken links, which is what we're asking in this specific case. This is fun to play around with, but we also have tools already out there that do this. And so I think we're going to go back and talk about that. You don't have to thank it, but if you believe that it's already smart enough that it treats you better when you're polite, like I do things like say thank you and please. But we can go to the back to the next slide here. So finally, to sum this up, AI will write you a script. It will help you do things like find broken links, missing metadata, or various other technical enhancements or improvements that you can make to your site. But those tools already exist, and there's no point in reinventing the wheel through AI. You can end up wasting quite a bit of time ignoring the solution that is in front of your eyes in order to try to create something really cool by using AI tools. For most companies, what is already out there can do the job that you need done for you. But should you need a custom solution, AI can help you create that, but only with the help of a strategist that tells you what you need, and with the help of a developer that can finalize the output, fix any errors in the code that AI produces, and finally push the product live without any errors or setbacks that could potentially break your site if it's not done by an experienced developer, but instead someone solely relying on AI. So that is all I have for the technical aspect of it, and then I will pass it off to Ben.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe and Sarah. That was wonderful. To recap, these are our core takeaways from this today. I would say, again, the big thing that we really hammered home was just making sure that you have the right person in the right seat. So if you're generating content, making sure that you have a content strategist that's thoroughly vetted in these tools to make sure that anytime you're developing those large quantities of content, that, again, you have that right person in the right seat. And again, always making sure that you're editing that content. So to Sarah's point, run that through plagiarism checkers, running that through different tools to ensure that whatever you're publishing ultimately reads like a human. And then last, and certainly not least, is again, these tools are very powerful. They can create code, they can do amazing things, but unfortunately, they are just not the silver bullet when it comes to any issue that we can find. And specifically, when we're talking about technical issues, you still need that developer, that helping hand to ensure that any code you create is being thoroughly vetted before it's put onto your site. So without delay, I will pass it back to Blake.
Thanks for wrapping that up. That was a great summary of today's conversation. I know we're running a little bit over, but we did get a lot of great questions, and I'd be remiss if we didn't get to at least a few of them. So I think we're going to dive in here with a couple of questions, and if you can hang on with us, hopefully we can answer one of yours. But I'll start with, is AI the same across the board? Are there different types of AI? I'm not sure which one of you three would want to take that. That's the first question we got.
Yeah, I mean, I can take that. Without getting too far into the details of how these systems are created, right? The programming, the machine learning that goes into developing them. Ultimately, yes, there are many different types of AI. There's generative AI, there's image-based AI, there is different forms and ways to train these systems. AI is kind of a catch-all term for just any type of system that can have kind of almost like a self-reliance of thinking. But ultimately, these really are just kind of fancy, you know, for lack of a better way to say it, chatbots in a sense that are just very sophisticated in their ability to produce content, to produce an image to you. But ultimately, yes, there are different types of AI out there. There are different systems that they can operate. Right now, I would say the main client, or not client-facing, but the public-facing ones are things like ChatGPT. You know, there's tons and tons of image generators out there that can also function in similar ways. But again, they're all trained on a similar type of code, but more or less the function of the thing that they do is really where the difference is in which you find them.
Thanks, Ben. I think I've got one for Joe here. We got someone asking, how do you activate the web access plugin for ChatGPT, if I can say it correctly there?
Yeah, there might be other out there, but Web ChatGPT is a Chrome extension. So you just search Web ChatGPT and it should take you to the Chrome extension. You install that, and as long as you're logged into ChatGPT, it should show up there automatically.
Gotcha. Thanks, Joe. And I think we'll finish up with one for Sarah. This is a question we got from a lot of different attendees. It's obviously a very popular question, so no pressure, Sarah. But we had several ask you, what plagiarism checker and AI detectors do you recommend?
So I personally prefer Grammarly for plagiarism checker. It does have a free version, but the premium version is a lot more sophisticated. And then I am a little paranoid, so I run my copy through several different content AI detectors. So my preferred ones would probably be the copyleaks.com AI detector, and then writer.com has an AI detector as well, and they both give you a percentage of the likelihood of human text versus AI.
Thanks, Sarah. Again, if we didn't get to your question or you think of something later, please shoot us a note. The email address here is on the screen. We got a lot of great questions. I wish we could just sit here and go through them all, but obviously you want to be respectful of everyone's time. But definitely appreciate everyone showing up today, and just want to thank our presenters today, and thank you to everyone who took time out of their busy schedule to join us. So our next webinar is coming up in October, and that webinar will be teeing up our annual planning for 2024 by outlining the steps for developing an effective growth strategy. So because you attended today's webinar, we'll email you directly with an invitation to the next one. And a lot of people asked if there'd be recording. We will share the recording of this webinar out in the coming days. So really thank you again for joining today, and hopefully we'll see you next time.